way before the days of XD40s, RTSs, and Orion 5s, there were trolley depots. Now, before this came to be, we're going to go back in time to the olden days of when trolley barns and streetcars ran and ruled the streets of Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island, and many other streets. So, I'm going to take you back in time to the history of what before became bus depots were trolley barns that served the streets of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, Jamaica, Queens, Lower Manhattan, Staten Island, the Bronx, and many others. So, lend me your ear and let's go back in time. Before we go on this nostalgic ride, I would kind of like to ask each and every one of you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on my future uploads. You can also follow me in the social media links in the description box down below. So without further delay, let's go back in time with a little bit of nostalgia. The West 5th Street Depot was located at the northwest corner of West 5th Street and Surf Avenue in Coney Island, adjacent to the Brighton Beach neighborhood and across the street from the New York Aquarium as well as the former Luna Park amusement park. It was originally the site of a railroad and trolley company called the 𝐁𝐫 Depot, built by the Prospect Park and Coney Island Railroad, operators of the 𝐁𝐫 surface line along present-day McDonald Avenue in 1975. This depot was built on Surf Avenue between West 5th and West 8th Street, serving Surface Railroad and later Brighton and 𝐁𝐫 elevated trains as well as streetcars. The terminal also served the streetcar lines of the competing Coney Island and Brooklyn Railroad, including its Smith Street line. A second adjacent facility on West 5th Street, also known as the Smith Street Trolley Depot, was built by Coney Island and Railroad Company in 1912 exclusively for streetcars. Most streetcar companies as well as 𝐁𝐫 and Brighton lines would become part of the BRT by the middle of the decade. By 1920, all elevated trains would move west to the BRT's Western Depot, and the original 𝐁𝐫 terminal was raised in 1923, with all streetcar service going to West 5th Street Depot. As a streetcar facility, it featured a concrete storage garage at its north end and a two-passenger terminal building at its south end facing Surf Avenue, with 7 loop tracks in the center of the complex for terminating streetcars. The passenger concourse featured a restaurant and a carousel, which would later be moved to Manhattan to become the Central Park Carousel. The depot would be absorbed into municipal operations during unification in 1940. On October 30th, 1956, the last streetcars operated to the depot along McDonald Avenue, in which it would likely be converted to bus service. The bus depot was closed on July 7th, 1960, replaced by the Fresh Find Depot in Queens. The depot was closed due to traffic congestion in Coney Island. By 1962, the site of the depot and former terminal was cleared. It is now the site of Bridgewater Towers apartment complex, built in the 1960s, shortly after the depot was demolished. The 12th Street Depot was located at East 12th Street between 1st Avenue and Avenue A in Lower Manhattan. It used to be a taxi garage. It was acquired from the 5th Avenue Coach Company in 1962. As a bus depot, the facility can only house 50 to 60 buses, which were assigned to Lower Manhattan routes such as the M12, which was discontinued in 1979, the M13, M14A, and M14D. The remaining buses on the routes came from depots in Manhattan and Upper Manhattan and were stored on the street. The depot was closed and replaced by the Hudson Pier Depot in 1971. The 37th or 39th Street Depot was located west of 2nd Avenue between 37th and 39th Street along the Gowanus Bay portion of the Upper New York Bay and the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal of Greenwood, Brooklyn. Located across from many former Bush Terminal buildings, it was adjacent to the coastal yard of the South Brooklyn Railway and west of the current Jackie Gleason Depot and the 36th 38th Street Yard. This site consisted of 2 buildings purchased from the Department of Marine and Aviation in 1948, storing 200 buses. The depot was near the former 39th Street Ferry Terminal, served by the Church Avenue Line streetcars until 1956. The 54th Street Depot was located on 9th Avenue between 53rd Street and 54th Streets in Midtown Manhattan. The address was 806 9th Avenue. It was built as the 9th Avenue Car Barn on the 9th Avenue Railroad in the late 1800s. The streetcar line was replaced by the 5th Avenue Coach Company buses on November 12, 1935, and the facility became a bus depot for the company. In March 1962, it fell under municipal operations. This depot was closed in 1992 and was replaced by the newly rebuilt Manhattanville Depot and was demolished between 1996 and 1997 and replaced by the Rapid Transit Division Rail Command Control Center at 354 West 54th Street between 8th and 9th Avenues. Before it closed in 1992, it operated the following Manhattan bus routes as the M6, M7, M11, M42, M27, M50, M57, M72, and M79. The contract for the command center was awarded in November 1997 with the intent of creating a central control room for the New York City subway that would implement automation of the system, including automatic train protection. The use of the non-labor union by a construction contractor led to a protest by thousands of union members at the site and at the MTA's Midtown headquarters of June 1998. Adjacent to the control center is an NYCT parking lot on the east side of 9th Avenue. The parking lot is planned to be redeveloped into affordable housing as part of the Western Rail Yard project, which would be redeveloped this site and the West Side Yard on West 33rd Street. Now this is one depot that I was lucky to be growing up and seeing in person. Now as you can see by the logo, yes, that's right, this logo. Are you really shocked? Alright, let me just give you the history lesson. Now the 126th Street Depot fills the city block bounded by 1st and 2nd Avenue and 126th Street and 127th Streets near the Harlem River Drive, RFK Triborough Bridge, and Willis Avenue bridges in East Harlem, Manhattan. The address is located at 2460 2nd Avenue, and the depot's decal, as you see here, has 126 in Roman numerals, 𝐒𝐿𝐵𝐷. A former trolley yard, the site was opened as a bus depot in 1947 by Surface Transit Inc., the successor to the streetcars of 3rd Avenue Railway. It would later be used as New York City's Omnibus Corporation until 1962, and then it would be taken over by the Transit Authority, as opposed to its map store subsidiary when its parent company 5th Avenue Coach folded. It housed the buses served as the normal terminal for the M15 Select Bus Service and the M15, the second busiest bus route in the United States and the busiest in the city, carrying over 60,000 passengers a day. Before it closed for the first time in 2015, it operated 4 additional local routes such as the M31, M35, M60 Select Bus Service, and the M116. Several structures have occupied the site since the beginning of the European settlement of that area. In the late 19th century, an amusement park and dance hall were erected on the site. It was used by the Cosmopolitan Production Studios owned by William Randolph Hearst until 1923. In 2008, a historical 17th century African American burial ground used by the Lord Reformed Church of Harlem, the first church in Harlem, and its successor, the Elmendorf Reformed Church, was discovered at the site. The MTA consequently agreed to move most of the depot's routes to the newly reopened Mother Clara Hill Depot. The 126th Street Depot was closed on January 5, 2015, and the land was returned to the city. It was slated to be demolished. 2 outdoor annexes located near the depot, one across of 2nd Avenue and 2 blocks north of East 128th Street, adjacent to Harlem River Park. The lot on 126th Street is used for bus storage and employee parking. The 128th Street facility is used to store express buses during midday hours. These facilities were added in 1989 and 1991 and in the mid-2000s. The 128th Street Annex is on the former site of the storage yard for the 129th Street station of the 2nd and 3rd Avenue L lines. The Bergen Street shop, which is located at 1415 Bergen Street or 1504 Dean Street, is located between Albany and Troy Avenues in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. This facility is bound by Dean Street at its north end and Bergen Street at its south end. It currently serves as the New York City Transit Sign Shop, also called the Bergen Sign Shop or Bergen Street Sign Shop, producing numerous signs for the Transit Authority, particularly those used in the New York City subway. It was originally the Bergen Street Trolley Coach Depot, operated as a streetcar barn by the Brooklyn, Queens County, and Suburban Railroad, and later under the BRT-BMT system under unification in 1940. It was reconstructed and enlarged under city operations between 1947 and 1948 and reopened on September 16th of that year as a trolley coach depot. The depot served the Bergen Street line, which is the B65, Lorimer Street line, the B48, St. John's Place line, B45, Graham Avenue line and Tompkins Avenue line, B43, and Flushing Avenue line, the B57. The depot stored 122 trolley coaches and may have also stored diesel buses. The depot was converted into the current sign shop when trolley bus service ended on July 27, 1960, and was replaced by the Fresh Pond Depot in Queens. The Brook Street Depot is located at 100 Brook Street or 539 Jersey Street in the Tompkinsville section of Staten Island. This site is bound by Brook Street to the north, Victory Boulevard to the south, Pike Street to the east, and Jersey Street and Castleton Avenue to the west. It was originally a streetcar barn built around 1902 for the Richmond Light and Railroad Company, which became Richmond Railways in 1927. The barn became a bus depot for the successor Staten Island Coach Company between 1934 and 1937. The depot was taken over by Isle Transportation in 1946. It was acquired by the Board of Transportation in 1947 and was rebuilt in the late 1940s for municipal bus operations. The new depot was designed to store 100 buses. In 1958, now under the control of New York City Transit Authority, was turned over to the New York City Board of Estimate. That year, it was converted into a garage for the New York City Department of Sanitation. In response to local community opposition of the site, the city plans to replace the depot with a new DSNY garage on the west shore near the former Fresh Kills landfill, where the old depot is planned to be replaced with a new residential development. Now, for all of you old school bus fans who are familiar with the old Crosstown Depot, allow me to fill you in. The Crosstown Depot, also referred to as the Crosstown Annex Facility or Crosstown Paint Shop, is located at 55/65 Commercial Street, near the intersection of Commercial and Box Streets in the neighborhood of Greenpoint, Brooklyn, on the south shore of Newtown Creek. The first Crosstown Depot was opened in 1885 as a streetcar depot by the Brooklyn Heights Railroad, located at Manhattan Avenue between Box and Clay Streets. It later became part of the BRT-BMT system under the Brooklyn and Queens Transportation Company, B&QT. The original depot consisted of a two-story brick building with trolley loops at ground level used for turning trolleys. Around 1945, the depot was no longer used for streetcar operations. In September 1951, the old Crosstown Depot was sold by the Board of Transportation and was used as a warehouse for a box manufacturer. On June 30th, 1952, the depot was an origin of an 8-alarm fire that killed at least one person and destroyed 15 buildings, including the depot. The site on Commercial Street was originally a refinery for the American Sugar Refining Company, predecessor to Domino Sugar, which opened in 1868 and later became a trolley storage yard for a washing facility for the B&QT. In 1946, the Board of Transportation began constructing a new facility on the site, which opened in July 1949 as the Crosstown Trolley Coach and Car Depot to serve 78 trolley coaches and 60 trolley cars. It was fully converted into a bus depot in 1954. The current depot consists of a two-story brick administration building facing Commercial Street and a shop for repairs, inspection, and washing facing Newtown Creek, along with a large storage yard for buses. This depot holds around 120 buses at capacity. At one time, it operated 10 bus lines: the B18, B24, B29, B30, B39, B48, B59, B60, B61, and B62. The B62's northern terminal was located 1 block away from the depot at Manhattan Avenue and Box Street. The depot operations ended on November 7, 1981 because of service reductions and operating costs. It later stored several new GMC-built RTSL-4 buses awaiting entry into revenue service in 1982. The Crosstown Depot has since been converted into a paint shop and road service operations facility located in the former repair shop. The facility contains 3 paint booths to paint MTA buses, the third of which was installed in 2001. Those paint shop operations were consolidated into those of the Grand Avenue facility, which the latter opened in 2008. The site also houses the New York City Subway's Department of Emergency Response in the former administration building and an accessorized storage facility utilizing the former bus storage area. This site is planned for redevelopment into a waterfront park called the Box Street Park. The DeKalb Depot, also known as the DeKalb Avenue Depot or DeKalb Avenue Shops, was located on the east side of DeKalb Avenue between On the Dock and Seneca Avenues in Ridgewood, Queens. It was built as a trolley bond by the Brooklyn City Railroad in the early 20th century, later becoming part of the BRT-BMT system. It served several streetcar lines, including the DeKalb Avenue line, which is today's bus route known as the B38, while its shop performed heavy maintenance. The facility was absorbed into, you guessed it, municipal operations just like the rest in 1940 and was converted into a trolley coach repair shop April 9 years later. The site is now occupied by a supermarket sitting across from the athletic field of the Grover Cleveland High School. Okay, now I know you guys have probably been expecting this because of its infamous history, but let's get into it without further delay. The Edgewater Depot, also called Edgewater Pier, was located at 60 or 171 Edgewater Street on the coastline of Rosebank, Staten Island, the former area of Pouch Terminal, which were Piers 20 and Piers 21. It was leased from Pouch Terminal Inc. in 1977 and used to relieve overcrowding at the Staten Island Depot, which is now known today as Closin Depot, which had been the only bus depot in the borough. It was later discovered that the terminal was about to be foreclosed and could have been acquired by the city at no cost. A fire destroyed Pier 20 in 1978, rendering the depot useless until 1983. Now here's where the real bad history comes in. During that time, the depot stored several new General Motors built RTSO4 buses awaiting entry into revenue service in 1982. Unfortunately, a year later, on February 18th, two GMC fishbowl buses on loan from Washington, D.C.'s Washington Metropolitan Area Transportation Authority fell into the Narrows after one of its piers collapsed. Although the TA initially planned to rehabilitate the depot, Edgewater was permanently abandoned 2 years later when it was found to be structurally unsafe for use as a bus depot. An office building is located near the site at 1 Edgewater Street or 1 Edgewater Plaza, used by the MTA, Staten Island Community Board 1, and other organizations. It was originally a pouch terminal warehouse, repurposed for office use from 1973 until the 80s. Now, besides 126th Street, this is another one of the bus depots that I was happy to see in operation before it disappeared. So, let me fill you guys in with the details. The Hudson Depot, or Hudson Pier Depot, was located on Hudson River Pier 57 at 15th Street in the present Hudson River Park in the Chelsea section of Manhattan. The address was 11 11th Avenue. This depot was built from 1950 to 1954 as a shipping pier. The pier was abandoned in 1967 by Grace Line and remained unused for several years. In December 1971, you guessed it, the New York City Transit Authority took possession of the vacant building and upgraded to facilitate bus fueling and storage. This was opposed by the International Longshoremen's Association, who desired the facility to be reactivated for maritime operations, and by local civic organizations. The depot opened for service on September 11, 1972, replacing the Trout Street Depot and providing indoor storage for over 200 buses previously parked on city streets. It held up to 165 buses. The Hudson Pier Depot was intended to be temporary, but was kept in service when plans to construct new depots failed and due to the closure of the nearby 54th Street Depot. This depot was closed on September 7, 2003, the same day that 100th Street Depot opened, and its routes such as the M8, M10, M11, M13, M14A, M14D, M20, M21, M22, M23, M16, M34, and the other half of the Q32 were transferred to both the 100th Street and the reopened Michael J. Quill Depot, except for the M10 and M11, which were transferred to Manhattanville, and were later some M11 and 116 runs were shared with Michael J. Quill Depot in an effort to ease severe overcrowding at the Manhattanville Depot, where many of their buses are stored on the local streets during nighttime hours. Our next history lesson leads us here to the Walnut Depot, or Walnut Avenue Depot, which was located on the south side of 132nd Street at Walnut Avenue, east of the Hellgate Bridge in the Portmore section of the Bronx, on the coastline of the East River and the mouth of the Bronx Kill. The address was 900 East 132nd Street. NYCTA bought the former warehouse from the former F.W. Woolworth Company for $1.8 million in 1979 and rebuilt it into an operating bus depot and opened it to buses on April 3, 1983, replacing the old and dilapidated West Farms Depot, which was closed on that same date, and also to relieve overcrowding at the existing Coliseum and Kingsbridge depots. On February 21, 1993, the Walnut Depot closed for rehabilitation and was replaced by the current Kingsbridge Depot, which reopened that same day after undergoing reconstruction. Walnut opened in 1995 and replaced the Coliseum Depot, which then closed for rehabilitation as well. The depot was planned to close around 2000 but was abruptly sold in early 1998 to the Empire State Development Corporation and later the Galassi Group for the construction of a new printing plant for the New York Post. Walnut Depot permanently closed in the spring of 1998, replaced by the Michael J. Quill Depot. At this time of the closure, it housed 220 buses and operated the following Bronx routes such as the BX4, BX6, BX11, BX13, BX15, BX17, BX19, BX33, BX35, BX41, and BX55 Limited, which was later discontinued and replaced by the BX15 Limited in 2013. The depot was demolished in order to construct the Post printing plant. Finally, we come to the old West Farms Depot, which was located at 1857 Boston Road, just north of the 174th Street subway station in the Katona Park East section of the Bronx. The site consisted of two maintenance buildings, one on a triangular plot bounded by 175th Street, Southern Boulevard, and Boston Road, and the second on the north side of 175th Street and the Cross-Ross Expressway on the east. Built in 1894 by the Union Railway as a car barn, it was used to store and maintain buses until April 3, 1983, when it was closed and replaced by the Walnut Depot and later the Gun Hill Depot. Before closing early 1983, it serviced the following Bronx local routes, such as the BX3 Prospect Katona Avenue, now which is the BX17, the BX11, BX25, now the BX32, the BX26, now today's BX21, the BX28 Williamsbridge, which is now today's BX39, the BX29, the 125th Street Crosstown and Willis 3rd Avenue, now today's BX15 Local and BX15 Limited, the BX31, the 145th, 149th Street Crosstown Southern Boulevard, now today's BX19, the BX32 St. Anne's Avenue route, which was discontinued in 1984, the BX34, 155th to 163rd Street Crosstown and Hunts Point Avenue route, now today's BX6, the BX35, BX41, BX42 Westchester Avenue, now today's BX4 and BX4A, and the BX49 High Bridge, discontinued and combined with today's BX13. The buildings continue to stand as recently as 2002, decaying and becoming havens for crime. The depot has since been demolished and replaced by housing developments and a self-storage facility. The nearby Coliseum Depot was renamed the West Farms Depot and opened in 2003. Well, there it is. It was a long journey, but we came through it all. So, which depot stood out to you? And which routes do you remember from back in the day that were revised and associated into the routes that we came to know and ride today? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to notify about latest uploads. You can also follow me in the social media links in the description box down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this history lesson. Stay tuned for more as we remember the best of New York City Transit's buses and subways.